Hello and welcome to today's very first Peer2Peer live from the IMCA. I'm delighted to be guest host today. I'm Lorraine Jekyll's Managing Partner of Free Partners and IMCA board member. Today's session is all about personalization and the content saturation challenge that marketers are facing. And I'm delighted to have with me today Raphael Zindi, who's Chief Commercial Officer for Slipcase. So Raf, lovely to have you here. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and about Slipcase?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you to the team at Free, and thank you to the wider team at the IMCA. Delighted to be here to give a view on Slipcase and some of the trends we're seeing across the market. As you alluded to, I'm the Chief Commercial Officer. I've been with Slipcase now for about a year and a half. My background to this, I was actually a client of Slipcase. So prior to joining Slipcase, I was at S&P, and prior to that, I was at Fitch. Always focused on the insurance market. I think before we went live, you alluded to the love of insurance. So that's definitely something we share in common here. And here to talk a little bit more around that marketing and content piece. But delighted to speak further at it.
Fantastic. Okay. So, thinking about content saturation, it's a new term, and it's a problem that we all face, is how do we stand out in a really saturated market? But how big is that problem really?
Yeah, so that's a big macro question, and let's perhaps take a step back and look at the content world. I read a stat which said I think there is about over 5 billion people that are active on the internet across the globe, and the rate in which content is being produced is at a faster rate than ever. So I heard it was doubling every year, but I think that rate is even faster now with things like AI and all the tools that are out there. But just taking a step back and looking at the content world, what does this mean for the insurance sector, and the role that Slipcase plays in this. So we are a content curator, so we're aggregating some of the best content that's been produced in the market, bringing it onto a single platform. So we label ourselves as a central information platform, and the whole premise of Slipcase is to enable organizations to better distribute their brand in this saturated market, demonstrate their expertise, and showcase really the best of them as an organization. That's on the external side. Internally, I guess, looking at the heartbeat of Slipcase, we are a data business. We're data driven, we're data first, and all the decisions we make are based on the data that we gather from the users that are signing up to Slipcase. And in answer to what does that user journey look like? We allow users to come onto Slipcase, set up a free profile in which they're able to pre-select topic interest areas, which companies they want to follow, which publications they want to follow, which service providers they want to follow, and then they get this personalized dashboard, which helps to address some of those issues around content saturation and having access to timely information, relevant, but also cutting out all the noise that's out there within the market.
So thinking about that personalization, how does that affect the work that marketers are doing, and how can they, are you seeing any trends in the sort of content people are curating, or how they're using the analytics to inform those choices?
Yeah, being a a data first organization, we're really at the forefront in terms of understanding what are the trends, what does the data tell us, but just taking a step back to that, one of the things we often discuss is content is king. Everyone's a content creator, there's plenty of content out there, as I alluded to, but I think the biggest thing is distribution is queen. So organizations that are going to win in this content war, or content world, or content saturated content world we're in, are the ones that are able to better utilize the distribution channels that are out there. So from a personalization standpoint, I think we can break this down into two main buckets, or three buckets rather. So we're seeing users that come onto slipcase.com because they enjoy going on the web platform and accessing the relevant curated content through that manner. In second to that, we're also seeing organizations, so other users, for example, that want to receive the curated content through their internal portals, internal intranets, so within the kind of their own organization. So a good example to this is, we're working with Marsh. So we are kind of the sole engine behind Marsh Marketplace, and pushing content directly into their intranet. So some users that want to consume content via that can access it through then. And then the third one is also via things such as the newsletters. So we're seeing a lot of interest as well in kind of bespoke newsletters, and that personalization piece really talks at how do you want to receive your content. There's also kind of a further narrative to this, which is there's different types of forms of content. So some users prefer, the podcast. So, there's a number of podcasts across the market that, risk professionals are diving into and enjoying. And, that's helping to kind of formulate and create habits. So, one of the things we also talk about is, formulating and creating habits from content. So, a habit could be, I want to listen to a podcast every week because, the future of insurance, or the voice of insurance in the London market is pushing this content. So, personalization comes in different forms, whether it's from an organization standpoint, but also from a kind of a personal standpoint and preference on how it's consumed.
So very much the marketers in the IMCA, for example, they could do this with their own data and analytics if they've got that, to look at what's the best kind of content. How do we encourage people to build relationships with their brands and form those habits?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the data really kind of tells everything. So we've been tracking data from we've got a global audience of over 220,000 risk professionals that come online with 55,000 plus and growing subscribers to our weekly newsletter. But the data really tells us some interesting things. So an interesting point is when are you receiving the content that you require? So we see a lot of clicks come through between 7 to 9 a.m. for example. So if you're an organization that's then creating content, perhaps one of the things to think about is if you're doing daily digests or writing content on a daily basis, could you gear it towards that specific kind of time frame across the market?
And are you seeing different trends in the types of formats of content that people prefer? Is it, white papers, for example, should always be a PDF, or, podcasts is for much more in-depth pieces? What sort of things are you seeing?
This is that crystal ball moment where it's like, what's really going to resonate with people? I think from the data that we're seeing, things like press releases, I think is a good example that's performing particularly well with some of the C-suite audience. So I think it was in 2022, we saw 10% of the C-suite engaging kind of with the press releases. Move over to 2023, a year on, and that's shot up right to about 40%. So there's a definite increase in engagement in things like press releases, but also I think things like short video performs particularly well, and then also I think looking at it more broadly, when organizations are producing bits of content, we can either go down the super technical route and have a very detailed report on Solvency II, you may name it, but I think it's also kind of breaking that down to having the technical report, but also having smaller snapshots, i.e. summaries of what does that report kind of give you, and things like infographics. I think we're living in an age of increased, or actually rather decreasing attention spans. There was a study that came out with, I think it was CNN, which said I think the attention span is reduced from 2.5 minutes screen time in 2004 to about 47 seconds in 2024. So there is that huge gap. People want information quickly, whether it's infographics or technical papers, but I think it's kind of really knowing your audience and having that data to back it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've certainly seen that people want much more snackable content, and it's the challenge is how do you deliver that message in a meaningful way? How do you pull on those emotional triggers? How do you make it distinctive and stand out? And if you've got 47 seconds, so it's a lot of pressure on marketers to kind of get all that information from their subject matter experts, distill it down into 40 seconds that really kind of hook people in. But that audience intelligence is the critical piece there, right?
The audience intelligence piece is absolutely critical, and you're spot on with it. One of the things we see as well from kind of that wider personalization standpoint is the content being snackable, yes, but also it being very, very relevant. So, to the time. So, a couple of bits of content that kind of really stick out in the front of mind is, the likes of, I think CFC did a piece on the Kendrick Lamar and Drake conflict that was going on, which I think had everyone in the kind of the hip hop world had their ears perked up. But they put a piece out on AI and implications on IP. That performed exceptionally well. Second to that, also I think the likes of Brit put out a piece looking at sneakers and the collectibles kind of world, and that growth in that market, and how that kind of resonated with some of their private clients, and what kind of products and solutions they're able to offer within that. So I think having content that resonates with kind of day to day, has got emotional triggers is another way to kind of get closer to the audience, but also having the data that we talked about at the start to kind of back up those informed decisions on what you produce and how you produce it and why you're producing it.
Yeah, and get that cut through when there's so much to choose from. You want to pick something that is really that your audience is interested in, right? Which is always a challenge. So you mentioned briefly there AI. I mean, how are you seeing people using AI and machine learning to help with the content creation?
That is, I'll say $1 million question, but I don't even know if $1 million is even enough to
Yeah.
answer this, right? I think what we're seeing with AI is it's a little bit kind of like on the underwriting side, where the underwriter of the future, for example, is utilizing AI data and that augmentation between human and tech, coming together. And I think we're going to see this in kind of from a marketing standpoint as well, where content that's created is going to involve, that kind of the human element. So, for example, we're talking here, this is not AI generated, but I think there's also going to be that kind of overlay of AI that comes through with some of the content production that's out in the marketplace. But I think the biggest question is going to be, really understanding who's produced the content, why has it been produced, and there's a kind of a wider argument around the use of AI for content creation, which is, it's got its net positives, i.e., idea generating, bringing fresh new ideas to life, but also on the flip side, it's issues around kind of bias. So really understanding who's built these models, what do they mean for the kind of recipient of the content that's been produced. So understanding, kind of going a little bit deeper into kind of that wider AI narrative is also something I think organizations should consider.
Absolutely, and I think authenticity is key. People are looking for that, but also all of our organisations got so many, great and talented people. It's just giving them the platform, the confidence to kind of get out there without having to have AI interfering with it so much.
Absolutely, and I think that kind of speaks true to the wider narrative around. I think one of the biggest talking points in the insurance market at the moment is bridging that talent gap and helping attract the right talent coming in, and do you utilize AI to draw talent in, or is it still kind of that human, face to face? Go meet an underwriter, go meet a broker. Really learn the tricks of the trade through conversations in place. But I think actually content's got to also play a big part in kind of helping address that talent gap issue across the market.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great platform to share your culture as well. And I think we talked about previously the way some of your clients are using content as a kind of supplementary training tool for some of their graduates, being able to personalize content and augment their on-the-job learning, as it were. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And we internally we're using a term that we're going out to market with authority on, which is around contextual intelligence, right? So this is the idea or the notion of understanding understanding risks from a kind of a 360 view rather than in isolation. So a good example at the moment, I think, I think there's a lot of talks the other side of the world on Bangladesh and the political risks that are happening out there, but also actually overlaying that with, what's happening with the different industries within that economy. So, from a content standpoint, we are, helping, for example, I don't know, call it college students, right, that are coming in to try and understand the wider risk landscape, not just to understand an issue in isolation, but also giving them the tools and the research, the insights that also surround that topic. And this goes back to the earlier point I made around kind of that personalized dashboard, which is using clever machine learning to kind of better match different content sets based on risk profiles to kind of give you that 360 view on what's happening out there.
Well, I think that's a great point that, marketers produce so much great content, and then once it's done, it's done. And there are lots of opportunities within an organization to repurpose it, use it for other things. And talent and education is obviously one. But are there other ways, like product development or, thinking about, the market or moving into different sectors that you've seen?
Yeah, it's definitely a growth area, and I think in a world that's riskier, insurance companies of the future, or certainly kind of brokers of the future, right, are the ones that are helping address some of the kind of more niche challenges that are out there in the market. I read a piece earlier on about wineries in California and the impacts on climate change and how there's a shift in terms of insurance coverage out there and the lack of coverage there were. But I think to your point around kind of using data to kind of better address and better create new products, that is something that I think is key. And from the data that we have, i.e., based on what are the trends, so measuring things such as some of where are the clicks coming from, what is the share of voice when you produce that piece on wineries in California, can help organizations create products, or at least help better shape their roadmap in terms of the direction travel. We're seeing a lot of interest in things like the sponsorship, right? So when organizations organically create a new product, I think Aegis is a good example. They had a wind deductible product for coastal homes, and they approached us to be able to kind of help them better support pushing that out, and through things like newsletter and having the right distribution channel, we're able to help organizations kind of push a specific message, or i.e. a new product out to a specific relevant audience, and also then kind of play back the data and analytics on that front.
Yeah, and I think that what another thing that we're seeing that is being empowered by having that data is that thinking about that wineries example, I know that that's the campaign we collaborated on, and that campaign we saw shift from a brand awareness campaign into a lead generation campaign. So marketing was having a direct impact on revenue generation, and having that data there was the thing that and it empowered them to make that decision and shift up the messaging and change that. And I think that's one of the other benefits of using all the analytics that are available is, that ROI piece. Have you got any examples where people have used, the CMOs have used the ROI from their content analytics to, grow their budgets or, get investment in specific areas?
Yeah, so I think a stat that kind of jumps to mind is organizations that come onto Slipcase see a 90%, 93% increase in kind of the kind of engagement. That's through things like click-throughs. And, we spend a lot of time in conversations with, marketing teams and communications teams across the market, but also that kind of C-suite, helping them to be able to better understand, if I'm spending $1 on X, what is it going to translate to? Why? So, I think we talked a little bit earlier on around kind of the revenue push being key. A lot of CMOs that that we are speaking to, are facing pressures internally to be able to kind of better justify that kind of the value of specific campaigns, and we're seeing a slight shift from just kind of the traditional marketing brand push, which is key and core, but also then becoming more closer aligned to the CFOs of organizations and the CEOs, and kind of helping them address some of the wider biggest challenges. We talked a little bit around product development. I think the CMO of the future plays a crucial role in terms of supporting the growth of an organization, not just what's available already, but also kind of that forward-looking view as to these are kind of some of the new trends. So we're seeing them take more of a varied view in terms of how they look at risks and how they actually ultimately help the organization grow, rather than just kind of the pure brand market play, but becoming more strategic with data and insights that's available out there.
Well, absolutely. And I think that's really, I love that, the CMO of the future. I know there's lots of them within the IMCA membership who are already that CMO, but it's very much a lovely thing to think of, that at every board table there would be a CMO there who is absolutely entwined in the direction of the business, the development of the products, and having those tools, like the content analytics and things is really useful for that. So,
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Is there anything else that you're seeing at the moment? I know we're talking about personalization, but is there anything else that we haven't covered that you think would be useful for the audience?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things out there is just really getting close to the data. It seems like I've kind of hammered home about the importance of data, but I think it's going to really help set apart the winners and losers in the market. So the ones that are leveraging data and analytics not only to better inform things we talked about, the products or the solutions that they're providing for their clients, but I think the ones that are using data to also address things like the talent gap, as we talked about, will be the ones that will win in the future. And there's huge opportunity as well to reduce things like reduce costs. So one of the things we often kind of talk to clients about is come to us, tell us where the highest kind of spend is on these campaigns, and let's kind of work with you to see if we can support with those costs and get a better ROI on some of that, the content that you're producing or the campaigns that you're running. So I think data is going to be key, and I think there's going to be a huge focus moving forward with kind of the wider market in terms of how they use data and where they apply it.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really lovely, as always, chatting to you. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you so much, and thanks to everyone who joined in.
Thank you.